welcome back to another episode of the Jam Sesh podcast. I'm your host, Kushi Salgia, and I know it's been a while, but I wanted to upload an episode today because, well, this episode I'm hoping will come out on April 8th, which will be 31st anniversary from when Kurt Cobain was found dead in his house. As you know, we talk a lot about alternative music on here, and I think every episode I've had here so far, I've talked about Nirvana. It's no secret that I'm a huge Nirvana fan. And today I just wanted to talk about, why he's so unique and different from other musicians of his time. Not very many people, even celebrities, are relevant this long after their death, but people still listen to Nirvana's music, people still talk about Kurt Cobain, and they're a classic, basically. You know, some artists are very of their time, and they're popular during the time that they're famous, but once they lose their fame, they're kind of forgotten about, like a one-hit wonder, or, they're representative of the time that they existed, but they're not classic enough to resonate with future generations. But I think Nirvana is a classic. They've managed to resonate with 3 generations: Gen X, Millennials, Gen Z, and who knows, maybe when Gen Alpha gets a little older, they might also like Nirvana's music. I want to go over what makes Kurt Cobain himself so iconic, so unique, so different. Why is he still relevant 3 decades after his death? That's very rare. How many artists / musicians / celebrities are talked about this long after their death? It's not very common. And yeah, I think it's very interesting that he was dubbed the voice of his generation, so making him very of his time in terms of Gen X, except he's not stuck in that time because he still resonates with future generations. There are tons of Nirvana fans that are millennials and Gen Z like myself, and he's still relevant. Nirvana was very, very ahead of their time in the 90s. So it makes sense that they continue to be relevant in future generations. First and foremost, you can't deny this. The music is really good. You don't get this sort of lasting power if the music you make isn't genuinely good. What's special about Nirvana is that people who are not into rock can still enjoy and appreciate this music because it has a large pop and catchy element to it, which just makes it really fun to listen to, and they're just very high energy songs. They're loud, catchy, upbeat, emotional, and they're very unique. There's nothing out there that sounded like this at the time. Since then, there are a lot of bands that have tried to emulate this sound or take inspiration from this sound, but they were one of the first to do it. Even within the grunge scene, Nirvana was very unique for not following traditional musical structures. Yes, Nirvana has the catchiness and that mainstream appeal, that pop sound that makes it fun for even non-rock fans, but it's more than just that, because there are songs out there that are fun, that are catchy, that become popular and hit the mainstream. But again, like I said earlier, the second the popularity passes, people just forget about it, and it's kind of old news. And once it loses its popularity, everyone just forgets about it and moves on to the next thing. I don't think Smells Like Teen Spirit is like that. It's a very lasting hit. It's one of the top songs of the decade that people still listen to, remember, and talk about to this day. It's not like one of those forgotten hits or underrated hits or songs from the 90s you forgot about. I feel like when it comes to 90s music, this song is very front of mind. And I talked about this in depth in my Smells Like Teen Spirit episodes, plural. Yes, I have 2 episodes about an hour long each where I go in detail about the song if you're curious. But yeah, what makes Nirvana's music unique? What makes Kurt Cobain unique as an artist? One of these is just the very simple chord progressions. Most Nirvana songs are very simple and very easy to play, and if you've played their songs on the guitar, you'll know that the songs use a lot of the same chords. They're very easy, like 2-chord, 3-chord, 4-chord songs. They're very easy to play. They're great for beginners, and the very first song I started learning on guitar was a Nirvana song, Come As You Are, actually. And this was during the time when showing off musicianship was very popular in rock, very complicated, gnarly guitar solos. And that was the way to prove that you were a good musician and that your music was good, that you could do super complicated moves on the guitar. And Kurt Cobain was the first one to kind of change that image. Like, a song doesn't have to be complicated in order to be good. It doesn't have to be super technically proficient or even fall into the rules of music theory in order to sound good. And despite the very simple chord progressions, it doesn't sound simple. You don't hear a Nirvana song and think, oh, there's something lacking, it's missing a layer, I wish there was more complexity to it. At least I've never felt that, and I've never heard anyone else say that. And if that were the case, their music would not be a classic the way it is. So it's a very groundbreaking idea when it comes to music, that music doesn't have to be complicated in order to be good. And this is something that made the music way more relatable and attainable, and even inspired a lot of musicians to get into making music, because I'm sure seeing all these complicated guitar moves can be very intimidating. But when you see Kurt Cobain play very simple chords on his guitar, you see that, and you're like, I could do that. But he was one of the first to challenge this idea that complicated doesn't necessarily equal good. And simple doesn't necessarily equal bad either. He's never had any real formal training in music. I mean, he took guitar lessons for like a month or two when he was a teenager, but he didn't stick with it. So he's mostly self-taught. And his technique's not technically proper, and he doesn't follow the rules of music theory often, which are two things that you wouldn't expect someone to be able to make good music if they don't have those two things, right? Well, Kurt Cobain proved that wrong. He's not formally trained in guitar, but he still plays it well. He has that energy. He's able to put chords together that sound good. It doesn't matter if it doesn't fit in the same key of the song. It sounds good, and that's really all that matters when it comes to music. When you listen to music, you don't analyze the music theory of it and then decide if you like it or not. You listen to how it sounds and how it makes you feel in order to decide whether you like it or not. That's how music works. Not being pretentious about the theory of it is what makes them so punked. That's very anti-establishment. It's very accessible, approachable, not intimidating. In addition to that, it also gives it a unique sound because he was putting chords together that people don't normally put together, or he was repeating a lot of chords. It didn't sound like anything that there was at the time. One example is in Lithium. The song is in the chord of D major, but there's a chord in there that doesn't belong in that key. So the verse progression is D major, and then after that, it's F major, when really it should be F minor if it's going to fit into the D major chord. And I have my guitar here, so I'm just going to play you an example. So here is Lithium originally, the way that Kurt Cobain plays it. And here is Lithium in the, quote, correct way, using the correct key. So, as you can see, the difference is that F major, F minor chord, I'll play each of the notes individually as well, so you can get a sense. So here's the F major chord, which is in the actual song. And here's the F minor chord, which would have been the correct chord to use according to music theory. As you can hear, there is a slight difference. It's not super drastic, and both versions sound good. The F minor is a little bit gloomier, and the F major is a little bit more upbeat, which is interesting because the song has kind of an upbeat and melancholic vibe at the same time, and I think he didn't want to keep a melancholic vibe throughout. He wanted it to have a mix of upbeat and melancholy sounds because, I mean, the song is called Lithium. It's a song about bipolar disorder, so I feel like it's very fitting to have non-congruent chords in there because that's how bipolar disorder is. Your emotions are non-congruent. You're having manic episodes and depressive episodes. The major chords are the manic episodes and the minor chords are the depressive episodes. And like I said, while Kurt Cobain wasn't technically trained in music, so there's a good chance he probably didn't do this intentionally. It just goes to show the natural intuition he had with music, that making a song about bipolar disorder, you want to combine upbeat chords and downbeat chords, I guess. Like, while he didn't know about the music theory of it, he just went off his feelings and intuition. What's the vibe he's trying to convey, and which combination of chords get there. And music theory jargon aside, the point of this is that there's a chord that, in quotes, shouldn't be there. Now, in my opinion, there are no shoulds and shouldn't in art, but according to the rules of music theory, this song is, again, quotes, incorrect. And this is not the only Nirvana song to do this. There are tons of Nirvana songs that do this. In fact, I feel like more Nirvana songs don't adhere to the rules of music theory than do. Smells Like Teen Spirit doesn't, About a Girl doesn't. Kurt took his limited knowledge of guitar and put them together in a way that he thought sounded good and conveyed a certain emotion. And at the end of the day, he was right, because people don't care about the technical parts. I mean, most people don't. And just zooming out and looking at the bigger picture of it, this is a very profound idea when it comes to art. The artists that break the rules of art are the ones that stand the test of time. The ones that do things differently and unconventional. The ones that do things well, they're revered for some time, but they don't have that lasting power. It's the ones that break the rules, break convention, and do it in a way that still has artistic merit. Those are the ones who are classics or legends or icons. And the impact of this is huge, because I think the biggest tangible change that resulted in this is that it made the idea of making music way less intimidating and way more approachable to so many people. I know it did for me, because you see all these complicated guitar solos and then people getting all technical about music, and you're like, whoa, that's so complicated. Like, it's very intimidating. But when you see how Kurt does it, it's like, yeah, I could do that. I can learn a few of the simple chords and put them together and make something that, while it may not be the most technically proficient, it's an authentic expression of my thoughts and feelings, which ultimately is the point of art. So it's just this idea that you don't have to do things the way that they've conventionally been done. The art is about how things feel above anything else. And tying into that idea is not just the music, but also the lyrics. I'm sure if you've heard Nirvana songs, or even if you've heard their most popular song, Smells Like Teen Spirit, you're probably like, what is the song about? You know, like, the lyrics are like seemingly very nonsensical. In almost every song, he doesn't directly tell you what, other than maybe Sliver. That's the only one where it's clear storytelling. You can see what that song is about just from the lyrics alone. All the other lyrics for the other songs seem just kind of random, a random mismashment of words. But guess what? As we just talked about, that doesn't matter. Kurt always said this, that people don't care about the actual lyrics of a song, they care about how the song makes them feel. And that makes sense. I mean, at the end of the day, we're animals, and our emotions come before our logic. And sound is very primal. If something scratches an itch in our brain and we like it, then we like that song, and then our technical analysis of it comes later. But at that point, it doesn't matter, because the primitive part of our brain has already decided at that point that we do or don't like that song. And the fact that a song like Smells Like Teen Spirit could become so popular and no one knows what it means is literal proof of that. People care less about lyrics, and people care more about how it sounds and how it feels. I mean, there's a whole Weird Al parody literally about this. His parody is about how nobody knows what the song is actually about. So you don't have to be a super skillfully trained musician or songwriter to make good music, because he basically redefined what good music is. Good music is not about the science of it and the formulas of it. It's about the feelings. And that's really what art is about. It's about feelings. I mean, okay, I guess it's not, I can't define what art actually is, but to me, some attributes of art is that it's very intuitive, and it doesn't have to follow certain rules or conventions. Although in a very corporate world where a certain formulaic song, except in a corporate world where songs that follow a certain formula are the ones that make money, art kind of loses that whimsy, because everyone wants to and needs to make money. So the songs that fit convention are the ones that are prioritized, because those are the ones that have been proven to make money. So breaking out of convention and showing, no, this is not what art has to be like. There's another way to do it. That's huge. I mean, for me personally, I have huge respect for artists or just anyone who can break rules, break convention, rebel, break tradition. It's not easy. You're alone. You're the first one doing it. People are telling you you're crazy, that you don't know what you're talking about. I'm sure when Kurt first started, before he became really famous, there were people telling him, like, how do you think you can be a musician? You never even learned how to play guitar. What did those lyrics even mean? They don't make sense. Like, how is this real music? I'm sure there were tons of naysayers before he got famous. Only now in hindsight, everybody's like, wow, he's such a genius, such a visionary. But in real time, no one is saying that. In real time, you're getting tons of criticism and pushback. And a lot of people in Kurt's life didn't even approve of his music, like his parents. They were like, you're wasting your time with this. And a lot of artists get that same pushback because no one's recognized as a visionary in the moment. It's only, hindsight's 2020. But yeah, I think I went on a little tangent there. Back to the main topic. So what's interesting about the lyrics is the non-direct nature of it. I'm trusting it from Sliver, which tells you exactly what the song's about. Most Nirvana songs have very vague, elusive, confusing lyrics. And what happens when lyrics are very vague like that? Well, people can project whatever they want to on them. It's like one of those Freudian inkblot tests where the way that you perceive it actually says more about you than about the inkblot itself. It's funny because Kurt would even say, like, I'm sick of people reading too much into my lyrics. Like, it doesn't mean anything, because obviously, like, when a song becomes really popular, people are going to want to know what it means, and people are going to analyze it to try to see what insights they can get and what it says about the artist. And Kurt was like, it doesn't mean anything. It's not that deep. I just write random stuff right before we're about to record. Which, by the way, was not completely true, because what he would do is he would write lyrics in advance, and then right before they were going to record, he would show those lyrics that he wrote in advance but act like he just came up with them on the spot. So while he didn't actually come up with lyrics on the spot, that's what he would tell people. And whether or not his lyrics did have some profound, deep meaning to them, that's up to interpretation. Kurt is obviously not here today to tell us. And even if he were here today, he would probably tell us the same thing he told us 30 years ago, saying, there's no deeper meaning to my lyrics. I'm sick of everyone reading too much into my lyrics. But yeah, that's the interesting thing about his lyrics, is that because they're so vague and seemingly random, that you can interpret them however you want. Like, I know I definitely have my interpretations. Like, for example, my interpretation of Heart-Shaped Box is supposed to be a metaphor for both his heroin addiction and his marriage to Courtney. But that's, again, my interpretation of it. I don't know for sure if that's what it's about. It could be about something else. It could be about nothing, like he said. When lyrics are vague and can be interpreted in any manner like that, it creates discussion, and it could also create controversy. If a song is very straightforward, then yes, people will enjoy it, but it won't spark as much discussion and attention as a song that's really vague. Again, like I said earlier, the whole nonsensical nature of Smells Like Teen Spirit is what inspired the whole Weird Al parody. It creates discussion. It gets people talking about it and paying attention to it more than if it were straightforward. And in general, when it came to Kurt Cobain's art, it was all about collage. He was very much into collage in every way. The lyrics were collage, just a random mismatch of whatever words were interesting to him. His music was a collage, just a random mismatch of whatever chords he thought sounded good together. And he personally also spent a lot of time collaging. Like, in his free time, he would be cutting out stuff from magazines and putting them together, or he would even be making little collage, like, short films where he would stitch together random footage. He was very much into collage, and that's a very punk ethos, because punk is all about DIY and being scrappy and making something new and interesting and unique out of what random components are available to you. And collage is also about not following a pattern either. It's just putting together every little piece that seems interesting without thinking about what it's going to end up like as a whole, and then you zoom out and look at it as a whole, and that's the art, and you've created something completely new and novel and original and unique out of something that already existed. It's about being scrappy. Collaging literally requires scraps of paper. And I'll get back to this idea of collage later, because collage is not a word that only describes his art, but it's also a word that describes his character and his persona. But I'm going to get to that later. Another point I wanted to mention about his music is also how relatable and universal it is. And I know that sounds contradictory because I just said his lyrics don't seem like they mean anything. And now I'm saying that they're relatable. But the thing is, first of all, you can project whatever you want onto it. But Nirvana's music is about the emotion that it conveys. Kurt says he doesn't think it matters what the actual lyrics mean, but rather how the words make you feel. His songs are full of emotionally charged words. Words or phrases that have shock value or that bring a vivid picture to the mind. Even though your brain is not able to intellectually piece together a coherent meaning, your mind does create some sort of emotion collage when you listen to these songs. And just experiencing this emotion collage while listening to the song, you get a sense of how Kurt was feeling at the time. The raw, angsty confusion of being young. And in addition to that, the music is loud and chaotic with the hard, grungy guitar chords and the screaming. The screaming conveys so much emotion. It's not just noise for the sake of noise. You can really feel the pain in his voice. It almost sounds like it's like a cathartic expression, like the devil is leaving his body or something. Whatever pent up negative feelings he's feeling inside comes out of him into the microphone and for all of us to hear and resonate with. So that's what's so interesting about the music, is that it's relatable not in the literal meaning itself, but in the very unique way he chooses to convey emotions through songs, through an emotional collage. It's like an emotional collage using the medium of guitars and screaming. And no one has ever done that before in the history of music. This is a completely new way of making music. Before, a story was told in the lyrics and the music. And this, while it's still kind of a story, it's not so much a cohesive narrative, but random elements and fragments of story kind of stitched together to create this very unique sensation in the listener. And that's what makes Nirvana's music stand out. That's what makes it different from other music of the time. There was nobody making music like this. There was nobody putting lyrics that just evoked an emotion rather than paying attention to the meaning of it. Nirvana's music just screams, literally screams, but it screams teenage angst. It screams that pain of youth, of just feeling misunderstood, feeling insecure, just hating yourself, feeling unwanted, feeling unloved, feeling lonely, feeling all the things that Kurt was feeling in his adolescence and even in his adulthood, and things we all feel in our life, especially in our teenagehood and 20s. And regardless of how traumatic someone's upbringing is, I do think everyone can relate to these on some extent, although people who have gone through something traumatic probably resonate with this music more because it's such a raw, visceral expression of emotions that if you've felt that same feeling, it like strikes a chord in you, like no pun intended, but like you just listen to it and you're like, yeah, I get it. I can't explain how I get it or what specifically I get, but I get it. And it's not just me. He was dubbed the voice of his generation. The fact that his music still resonates today shows how timeless it is. Nirvana is a classic at this point. His pain feels authentic. You can feel what he's feeling. And it's told from the perspective of someone who's really going through it. It's not like someone's writing about something without having experienced it. You can feel that what he's going through. Like, this dude has been through it. Is he okay? Am I okay? What is life? And it's really amazing how he was able to balance on the fine line between pop and punk because those are two very differing, those are basically two opposite ideologies. How do you appeal to one group and also appeal to the other at the same time? Usually something that appeals to one group repels the other. But Nirvana's music appeals to both groups, the mainstream and the underground. And that is no easy feat. That's very impressive to straddle the boundary between pop and punk. It appeals to rock fans and non-rock fans. While Kurt was a rock star, he was very much a big fan of pop music as well. and he would definitely bring some of those elements into his song. I mean, he was very good at coming up with catchy tunes. Like Smells Like Teen Spirit, of course, super catchy, but I'm also thinking like About a Girl. Or Serve the Servants is one of my favorite like tunes of the song. And rock music is not always known for its tunes. For example, a band like Metallica. Metallica's song is about hard metal kind of chords and lots of complicated guitar solos, and it sounds great. I love Metallica's music, but Metallica's music is not catchy. It doesn't have that same pop appeal where there's a distinct tune that you can hum throughout the whole song and that can get stuck in your head. Reaching out for something you got to feel, while clutching to what you thought was real. Kicking at a dead horse pleases you, no way of showing your gratitude. Which is why rock fans probably do like Metallica, but people who are not into rock probably don't like Metallica as much because it very much has that rock sound. Whereas Nirvana's music, even someone who's not into rock can still get into Nirvana's music because it has that catchy kind of pop-like tune to it. Punk is all about DIY and defying convention, which he clearly did in his music. And pop songs have to be upbeat and catchy and be the kind of thing that you can play at a party, or the kind of thing that can be stuck in someone's head, the kind of thing that all types of people can enjoy regardless of what their music taste is. And Nirvana's music also does that. Because it was so unique and grungy, it appealed to the underground people, but it didn't have the conventional makings of a typical rock song, so non-rock fans could also enjoy it as well. And I think that's a huge component to why Nirvana became as successful as they did. I mean, they just blew up practically overnight. I think within a month of Nevermind's release, Smells Like Teen Spirit was like in the top charts. And there's a lot of elements that contributed to that song blowing up. But I think one of the biggest reasons that Nirvana became as popular as they did is their ability to appeal to both a mainstream and non-mainstream audience at the same time. Which again is very impressive considering both those groups like very opposite things. I believe, and I could be wrong in this, but this is my theory, is that regardless of what music someone likes, I think they should be able to find at least one Nirvana song that they like. I mean, Nirvana has over 100 songs. There should be at least one that they like, whether it's an original song or even a cover, because it's very hard for an underground band to become mainstream because they have such a niche kind of sound. They might become very popular in the underground circles, but it's going to be very hard for them to have mainstream success because only a small percent of the population like that. There's only a small percent of the population that likes that kind of sound. But if you do tailor your music to be the kind that appeals to the mainstream, then you're going to alienate your underground audience because they don't want that sound. They want that unique sound, which is why they're part of the underground and not into mainstream music. So it's very hard for one artist to appeal to both groups. But Kurt, bringing his very unconventional music approach and his very unconventional upbringing, and taking that and combining it with the knowledge he has about pop music and just the natural intuition and sense he had for creating music that sounds good, despite not having any technical training. That was a formula that created lots of songs that all sorts of people loved. And again, there's lots of factors that contribute to Nirvana's success, and I could even do an episode on that at some point, like breaking down all the factors on what made them so special and unique and such a big deal, because it's once in a generation that there's a band like this. What makes them special, what sets them apart, that's a whole different episode, and I can go deep into that and analyze that, but today we're just talking about Kurt Cobain himself as an artist and as a person. And one last component of the music that I wanted to talk about is the voice. This is something I didn't talk as much about in my Smells Like Teen Spirit episodes, so let's analyze his voice for a little bit. First of all, I have to say, it is known that he had terrible vocal technique. I mean, you can just hear it. Many vocal coaches have commented on his performances. He does not have the right vocal technique, and if he continued to use his voice like this, it would have damaged his vocal cords. I guess it was worth it because it sounds amazing. I mean, just the raw, gritty, screaming vocals. And he had no technical training, again, but he has mastered that perfect rock and roll, gritty, loud scream, and he just has a natural voice for rock and roll, which is something you kind of have to be born with. I mean, you can hone one through practice, but it's tricky if you don't naturally have the voice for it to begin with, and he has that. He has it and he uses it to his advantage. His screams are otherworldly. It sounds like all the pent-up pain from his childhood is just coming out from his stomach through his throat. And he even said in an interview at one point, because of his immense stomach pain, that's why his screams are so guttural and visceral and almost animalistic. My favorite scream is Aneurysm around the solo of the song. He lets out this amazing guttural scream, and it's just so good. And then, of course, another famous scream is the one in school. You know, you're in high school again. Another one I like is in Drain You, his performance in 1994, where the guitar stops working, so he just throws the guitar aside and screams. Ah, so good. Anyways, his vocal cords are as grungy as his guitar chords. I mean, they're one and the same. The guitar as an instrument is the same way he uses his voice as an instrument. He's untrained, he's raw, he's unprofessional, he doesn't have good technique, but still it sounds so good. It sounds so emotional and it resonates. And he comes up with this unique product that no one has ever done before. And also there's just something interesting about a voice like that coming out of someone who seems so quiet and tiny. I mean, he was known for being shy and not very talkative. He was very skinny, 5'9". Like, he's like a very tiny and shy person. But then his screams, it's like one of the, it's like one of those tiny dogs that has such a loud bark, and you're like, whoa, you know? But even people who knew Kurt in real life would say, like, I didn't know he had it in him. Like, he doesn't seem like the kind of guy to have such a stage presence, but apparently he did. Okay, so when I first started recording, I thought I would be able to talk about everything I wanted to talk about in a single episode, but then I realized that if I did that, the episode would be like 2.5 hours long or something, so I'm going to break it up into 2 parts. So this first part was focusing on the music, and what about Kurt Cobain's music and artistry makes him stand out as an artist and a musician. And then next week, I'll be talking about what about Kurt Cobain the person makes him unique and iconic. What about his personality and the persona he portrayed to the public made him a figurehead of Generation X. Why is he so special? Why is he different? Why does he stand out? What's so different about him than other celebrities? So that's what I'm going to be talking about next week, because this episode's already long enough. So if you're interested in that, then I will see you next week. Hope you enjoy this episode, and if you like it, then subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone you know who's also a diehard Nirvana fan. Okay, I'll see you next week. Bye.